Myanmar, a beautiful country with stunning landscapes and ancient temples, has suffered under the control of cruel rulers for a long time. The Tatmadaw, Myanmar's strong and brutal military, has controlled the nation for too long. The people of Myanmar, tired of being treated unfairly, hope for a chance to take back their future. Things began to change in Myanmar in the 2010s. The country, long under military rule, started to see the first glimmers of hope for a different future. The streets, once quiet and subdued, began to buzz with a new kind of energy. People walked with a sense of purpose, their eyes reflecting a newfound determination. The cityscape, though still marked by years of oppression, seemed to breathe a little easier, as if anticipating the winds of change. Aung San Suu Kyi, the important leader of the National League for Democracy, was released from house arrest, giving people hope. Her release was more than just a personal victory. It was a symbol of resilience and the possibility of a brighter future. Her smile, captured in photographs, became a beacon of hope for millions. Her speeches, filled with words of courage and determination, resonated deeply with the people, inspiring them to believe that change was indeed possible. In the 2015 election, the NLD won a huge victory, showing that the people wanted change. The streets erupted in celebration as supporters waved flags and cheered. The election results were a clear message to the world. The people of Myanmar were ready to embrace democracy. The victory was not just a political win, it was a triumph of the human spirit, a testament to the power of collective will and the desire for freedom. Even with challenges, the people of Myanmar refused to be quiet, ready to fight for their freedom. Protests filled the streets, with citizens holding signs and marching for their rights. The defiant faces of the protesters told a story of unwavering resolve. Despite the obstacles, the spirit of defiance burned brightly, a spark that refused to be extinguished. The journey was far from over, but the people of Myanmar had made it clear they would not be silenced. February 1st, 2021, started like any other day in Yangon, but the peace was broken when the Tatmadaw took over the government. Aung San Suu Kyi and other leaders were arrested, their voices silenced again. The coup shocked Myanmar and the world, starting a fight for freedom. In Yangon, a huge crowd of people wearing red filled the streets. Millions protested, turning Yangon into a symbol of resistance. The protests quickly spread across the country, uniting people against the coup. The world watched as a nation stood up to its oppressors. The Tatmadaw responded with violence, sending soldiers to break up the crowds. They fired real bullets, turning peaceful protests into chaos. Doctors and nurses who helped injured protesters were arrested, and reporters were silenced. The harder they tried to stop the protests, the stronger the people's resistance became. As the violence got worse, a new group of activists appeared, skilled with technology and unafraid. They organized quick protests, held silent strikes, and used social media to share information. They called themselves the Spring Revolution Generation, determined to end military rule. Their bravery inspired others, turning the fight for democracy into a national movement. The internet became a key part of the fight against the junta's lies. Activists used social media to share information and plan protests. They made funny pictures and videos, and used hashtags to tell the world what was happening. The internet became a place where the truth could be shared, and the fight for freedom grew stronger. As the junta took more control of the cities, the fight moved to the jungles. Young activists joined with experienced ethnic armed groups. The jungles became a place of unity where city activists and ethnic fighters worked together. A new part of Myanmar's history had begun. The junta used terrible violence against civilians. Villages were destroyed, hospitals were bombed, and aid workers were not allowed in. Stories of killings, torture, and sexual violence showed a horrifying situation. The world seemed unable to stop the violence. Even with the junta's cruelty, the resistance grew stronger. The People's Defense Force, a group of civilian fighters, formed to fight the Tatmadaw. They attacked the regime's supplies. Their wins, though small, showed that the Tatmadaw could be beaten. The resistance movement included people from all parts of Myanmar society. Women played important roles, challenging old ideas. The shared struggle brought together Myanmar's different ethnic and religious groups. The fight for democracy gave people hope in a dark time. As Myanmar's civil war continued, the economy collapsed. Money lost its value, businesses closed, and foreign investment stopped. Education and healthcare fell apart because of the conflict. The nation was falling apart, and its future was uncertain. Myanmar's children faced a terrible nightmare. Many children didn't have enough food, diseases came back, and many were hurt emotionally. The world seemed unable to give the help they needed. The children became a sad symbol of the world not caring. As the conflict went on, people felt hopeless. Just trying to survive was very hard for millions. The emotional impact of the conflict was huge, but small acts of kindness gave some hope. Communities supported those who lost family members or were put in jail. The world watched, seemingly frozen by not caring and political games. Countries criticized the coup but didn't do anything strong. Neighboring countries didn't get involved, ignoring the junta's cruelty. Powerful countries played a role in Myanmar's tragedy. China saw Myanmar as important for its trade routes. Russia saw a chance to gain power and weaken the West. The junta, isolated from the West, relied more on Russia and China. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, a group of countries working together, was established in 1967 with the aim of promoting political and economic cooperation and regional stability. Over the years, ASEAN has grown to include 10 member countries: Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. The organization has been instrumental in fostering dialogue and collaboration among its members, addressing issues ranging from trade and investment to security and cultural exchange. However, despite its successes, ASEAN has faced significant challenges, particularly when it comes to addressing internal conflicts and human rights issues. One of the most pressing issues that ASEAN has struggled with is the crisis in Myanmar. Since the military coup in February 2021, Myanmar has been plunged into chaos, with widespread protests, violent crackdowns, and a deteriorating humanitarian situation. ASEAN has been criticized for not taking strong action, and for adhering to its principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of member states. This principle, while intended to respect the sovereignty of each nation, has often been seen as a hindrance to effective intervention in times of crisis. Some ASEAN members, like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, were very worried about Myanmar and wanted the violence to stop. These countries have been vocal in their calls for an end to the violence and for the restoration of democracy in Myanmar. They have also pushed for ASEAN to take a more active role in mediating the conflict and providing humanitarian assistance to those affected. Their stance reflects a growing recognition that regional stability cannot be achieved without addressing the root causes of conflict and human rights abuses. But other members like Thailand and Cambodia didn't want to get involved. These countries have been more cautious in their approach, emphasizing the importance of non-interference and the need to respect Myanmar's sovereignty. They argue that external intervention could exacerbate the situation and lead to further instability. This divergence in views has created a significant rift within ASEAN, making it difficult for the organization to present a united front and take decisive action. The junta used these disagreements within ASEAN to its advantage. By exploiting the divisions among member states, the military regime in Myanmar has been able to resist international pressure and continue its crackdown on dissent. The lack of a cohesive response from ASEAN has emboldened the junta, allowing it to maintain its grip on power and further entrench its control over the country. ASEAN's efforts to help failed because of its disagreements and the junta's refusal to cooperate. The organization's inability to reach a consensus on how to address the crisis has undermined its credibility and effectiveness. As a result, the people of Myanmar continue to suffer, and the region remains unstable. Moving forward, ASEAN faces the daunting task of reconciling its principles of non-interference with the need to take meaningful action in the face of human rights violations and political turmoil. Only by finding a balance between these competing priorities can ASEAN hope to fulfill its mission of promoting peace, stability, and prosperity in Southeast Asia. As Myanmar's problems got worse, the world's attention moved on. Other crises like the war in Ukraine seemed more important. The world's response to Myanmar wasn't strong enough to make a real difference. Sanctions didn't change the junta's actions. Aid was needed, but it was hard to get it to the people who needed it. Myanmar is at a turning point. Will it become a democracy, or will its people continue to suffer? The junta has not been able to stop the resistance. The Tatmadaw, once seen as unbeatable, is now weaker. The resistance, though not as strong militarily, has shown it is determined to fight for freedom. The world must help the people of Myanmar. What will happen in Myanmar? This question looms large over the nation as uncertainty grips the hearts and minds of its people. The country stands at a crossroads, with multiple potential futures ahead. Each path holds its own set of challenges and opportunities, and the choices made in the coming months and years will shape the destiny of Myanmar for generations to come. One possibility is a peace agreement between the junta and the resistance. Such an agreement could pave the way for a more stable and prosperous future. It would require significant concessions from both sides, a willingness to compromise, and a genuine commitment to peace. The international community could play a crucial role in facilitating these negotiations, providing support and incentives for both parties to come to the table. This might include releasing political prisoners and a return to democracy. The restoration of democratic institutions would be a monumental step forward, offering hope and a sense of normalcy to the people of Myanmar. Free and fair elections could empower citizens to have a voice in their government, fostering a sense of unity and national pride. But this seems unlikely because the junta doesn't want to give up power. The military's grip on the country is strong, and they have shown little willingness to relinquish control. The resistance, on the other hand, is determined to fight for their rights and freedoms, leading to a tense and volatile situation. A more likely outcome is a long conflict with neither side winning. Prolonged violence could devastate the nation, leading to widespread suffering and displacement. The humanitarian crisis could worsen, with countless lives lost and communities torn apart. The international community would need to step in to provide aid and support to those affected by the conflict. Myanmar could become a failed state, its people suffering. The collapse of governmental structures and the breakdown of social order could lead to chaos and anarchy. The most vulnerable populations, including children and the elderly, would bear the brunt of the crisis. Efforts to rebuild and recover would be long and arduous, requiring the collective effort of the global community. The world not doing enough in Myanmar has caused great suffering. The conflict has forced many people from their homes, made people poorer and caused health problems. The junta's actions have also helped criminals involved in drugs, human trafficking and weapons. Myanmar, once a hope for democracy, has become a place of instability. The people of Myanmar have not given up hope. They continue to fight for freedom. The world must help them. The world needs to take strong action, like sanctions against the junta, and more aid for the people. Every day in Myanmar is filled with sadness. A whole generation has grown up under military rule. Young people carry the emotional scars of trauma. The conflict has destroyed buildings and hurt the healthcare system, but the spirit of the Burmese people is still strong. They still hope for a better future. The world has watched Myanmar's suffering and hasn't done enough. The international community's response has been a failure. The world must take strong action, like stopping weapon sales to the Tatmadaw and giving more aid. The fight in Myanmar is a fight between democracy and those who want to control others. If the world fails Myanmar, it fails everyone who believes in freedom and human rights. We must support the people of Myanmar. We must help them achieve their dream of a free and democratic country. The time for action is now.